Welcome into another episode of the Mainly Hoops Best Bets episode. We've got a big day of games tomorrow, probably the biggest day of the year with conference playing full swing, SEC playing full swing now. And jumping right into it, the first game of the day, without a doubt, has to be undefeated Florida at Rupp Arena against Kentucky. Kentucky coming into this game right now at 2.5-point favorites at home. Their last meaningful game there was against Ohio State at Madison Square Garden and got handled. So, I'd expect them to come out with a bit of urgency in this game.
Yeah, they definitely should, and that's the side I'm on. Kentucky minus 2.5. It opened a little bit shorter than this, so I wish I could have recommended like a minus 125, minus 130 money line, but I'd still lay the 3 or the 2.5 just for the spot here. Obviously, Florida's undefeated. Kentucky's going to come out super angry in this game, ready to start conference play off with a bang. I do think they have some advantages, especially on the perimeter. I think Kentucky's bigs being able to space out Florida's bigs a little bit will be able to help the guards for Kentucky create some advantages against the, wouldn't say slow-footed bigs of Florida, but slower-footed. And like you've seen, like North Carolina in their game and like Florida's other biggest game of the year, like Carolina was able to expose them off the bounce when they were able to get them in switches and space them out a bit. And I think Kentucky can do similar things here. And I also think Kentucky can keep Florida off the glass to a degree. They're not going to be able to deploy that zone that they've been using when their defense has kind of been iffy at times this year. So I think playing that drop coverage, staying in good position defensively and not getting into scramble mode is really going to help here. And I think they're like top 30 in defensive rebound rate in the entire country. So I think they have just as good of a chance as any other the top rebounding teams in the country to keep Florida off the glass some. And overall, I just think Florida is probably at the top of their market at this point. Like you can't be much higher up than where you're at right now, being undefeated. They've smashed a ton of buy game competition, and like this is definitely going to be the best competition they played all year. We said the same thing about Carolina. They allowed Carolina back into the game and looked like that game hasn't particularly aged like fantastic for Florida. Carolina's performances, they're sitting at 8-5, 8-6 right now. It just hasn't really been a good year for them. So I do expect Kentucky to get it done here behind a solid home environment at 11 a.m. Eastern time as well. So that's going to be a weird start time.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a spot that Kentucky should be ready to go and bounce back a little bit. And like you said, Florida, at the top of, probably at their ceiling in terms of where they're going to be in the AP poll. Feels like a spot where they're going to pick up their first loss, if I had to guess. So I'm with you on that, being on that side of that one. The next game, we have BYU traveling to Houston. They're 10-point underdogs in this one.
Yeah, this is a scary one. I really don't like fading Houston ever, but they have some injury concern. It looks like Emmanuel Sharp's going to miss this game. Sampson was talking about how he's dealing with a pretty bad foot injury right now. He was playing with like a swollen and black and blue foot last game, and he missed practice all week. So I really don't expect him to play here. And when a guy like him goes down, they don't really have great backups, especially in the shooting department. And the offense is kind of bleak from a scoring department outside of him and LJ Cryer anyway. So like a guy like Malik Wilson or, Mercy Miller is going to have to step up and provide consistent shooting. And I'm willing to bet against that. And Houston's interior scoring isn't the greatest, so they can't really make up for that outside of their offensive rebounding ability. And BYU is the best defensive rebounding team in the country. That was one of the more surprising things I saw when looking into this game, albeit they haven't really played against any sort of team that's going to really challenge them on the glass. Being the number one defensive rebound rate team is impressive in its own right. And they do like to filter teams out to the perimeter, keep teams away from the rim. And I do think that's going to be a good proposition when you only have one shooter in this game for Houston with LJ Cryer. And BYU has a ton of shooting of their own. And that's kind of the way you beat this Houston defense is with the spacing, with the ball movement. They have shooters all over the floor. And then like they might be able to match them on the glass as well on the offensive end with the two-man duo of Fush Traore and Keba Keita. I think they can, match Houston rebound for the most part. Obviously it's really tough to match Houston, but overall, I think it's a really good matchup for BYU. And obviously it's scary with them going on the road. Their only road test this year was Providence, and they got absolutely stomped. So it's a bit scary doing this and betting against Houston, which I hate doing. I've done it only a handful of times in my entire life. So, but I'm going to go to it here. I love the matchup, and Houston is just not the same team without Sharp.
Yeah, no, if he's unable to go, that'll be interesting to monitor. But like we've warned you all before, make sure to check before tip off, because these college injury reports and just reports in general can be so inaccurate. Like he could come out tomorrow maybe, and maybe he doesn't even participate in shoot around, but then he ends up warming up and they're like he's just going to warm up and not play, and then he plays and he has 30. And so just keep an eye on it. I'd say, like, check Twitter. It will try to give an update if we do hear anything in the Discord or on Twitter, but definitely something to monitor there.
Yeah, and if he does play, I would wait. It's going to get bet up a little bit. Like I wouldn't be surprised if it got to like 12. I would still take BYU at 12, like even if Sharp plays. So I would kind of just wait closer to game time if he gets ruled in and take the 11.5, 12. I think the furthest I would play it down to is 11.5 if Sharp is in.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. The next game, we've got Arizona State as 6-point favorites over Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, this is mostly a fade of Colorado. Pretty good spot for Arizona State too. Like they just got blown out by BYU in the first Big 12 game of the year. You really don't want to get to an 0-2 start in league play, or else it really starts to get bleak with your opportunities and your resume starts to kind of dwindle. But this is Colorado's first true road game of the season, which is kind of crazy. We're like 14 games in. Their only games away from home are the games that they played in Maui. Every other game has been played in their home gym in Boulder, and they've perennially been a really good home team with their elevation advantage and their home court environment in general, but they've also been equally bad on the road. And I do think Arizona State is the significantly better team in this spot. So there's no real matchup angle for this for Arizona State. It's mostly just a pure fade of Colorado, a team I really don't like. I think they've been super lucky defending the 3-point line as well. So yeah, give me Arizona State here.
Yeah, no, and Arizona State, right? They're coming off. They lost their first conference game, right?
Yeah, they lost by like 20 at BYU.
Yeah, so this is a spot for them that they need to get right. And like you said, Colorado, not a very good team. They've had some solid wins, of course, as we saw, but I think that's all kind of fake. If you ask me, they're just not that good. So Arizona State definitely needs to get right here. So I'm definitely with you on that side. The next one of your teams, Stanford Cardinal, plus 10.5 against Pittsburgh. You've been high on Stanford all year.
Yeah, I am high on them. The last 2 games haven't really been all that encouraging. Although like they hung in with Clemson, but before that, the game against Oregon was super ugly. So, but I'm going to go back to him here, and it is because of injuries on the Pittsburgh side for the most part. Ish Leggett didn't play last game. They came off of a 10-game break, and he still wasn't able to go, or he picked up the injury during the break and wasn't able to play against Cal. And they just don't really have a ton of great backups to go to. It's basically Jalen Lowe and Ish Leggett in the backcourt, and everyone else is kind of just a filler, and the replacement value is pretty poor. Brandon Cummings has done a good job for Pittsburgh filling in, but they just don't really have any bench options after those guys. And it showed against Cal last game. They were like a 13-point favorite, I believe, and they were down double digits in the first half before they were able to break away a bit in the second half. But yeah, it's mostly just injuries on the Pittsburgh side. I think Stanford can easily, win the rebound battle and hold their own against Pittsburgh's solid front court group. So, and I obviously love Kyle Smith as a dog. He's been perennially great in this spot. So, yeah, I'll take the Stanford Cardinal plus 10.5 at the moment. If Ishalaget does play, it's most likely just a lean, and I would still easily lean to that side, but it's most likely not an official play.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. The next one, this is West Virginia coming off a road win at Allen Fieldhouse against Kansas in a game where they arrived like a few hours before tip-off or something.
They showed up at like 2 a.m. the night before, and the game tipped off at 1 p.m. local,
and they were without 2 starters and still handled business against Kansas, who's just kind of plummeting right now. Now they come into this game as 9.5 point favorites, right? And
9.5 point home favorites
against Oklahoma State. So this is, I would assume, before I let you get into it, I would assume this is just a fade of West Virginia while they're kind of hot in the market.
Yeah, it's a fade of them as like a bigger favorite. I did this earlier in the year when I played Georgetown when they played in the Big East Big 12 Challenge. It didn't hit, but they Georgetown was winning at halftime, and then they kind of just melted down the stretch, which like the exact same thing could happen with Oklahoma State. This isn't a team I really love all that much, but I do think they can win the rebound battle on both ends of the floor, and that's going to play up on the road. So yeah, I mean, I don't really love the creation overall against this West Virginia team that doesn't really like to help off of their guys. So, but overall, I just don't really love this West Virginia offense the way it looks right now. I think a lot of the reason why they won that game against Kansas was Kansas's own doing. Like they got forced into taking a lot of bad shots by players that they don't want taking those shots. Like a lot of like KJ Adams, like push shots at the elbow, or DeJuan Harris. Every time they lose, he's always taking 10 to 15 shots. And like, that's just not what they want him doing. So I think a lot of that was Kansas's doing. And I just didn't think they came out with a fantastic game plan. And DeVries is great, obviously, but the offensive talent without DeVries and Hansberry it's bleak outside of Javon Small. Like they don't really have a ton of guys that they can go to. If they were, I mean, as a dog, like I really don't like fading this team because they limit transition and they're a really good defensive team, but it's just the offense that I have quite a few concerns about. And outside of that game against Kansas, they really didn't impress that much against bye game competition. They kind of struggled to score against like much weaker competition. So I will take Oklahoma State plus the 9.5.
And if there's a team that knows Javon Small, right? He came from Oklahoma State, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's a new program there now, so I don't really some of the players would know.
Some of the players, right? But I think his like style. There are people there that know who he is, right? And so, if there's a program that knows him, like this is a matchup where maybe he struggles. I don't know, but like you said, outside of him, like the offensive talent isn't superb, and he's had big games this year, and I still have my doubts on him. Like it seems, I don't know how sustainable it is. Obviously he's played well up to this point, but this wasn't at all what he was at Oklahoma State.
No, not even close, really. And Oklahoma State will try to take him away to an extent too. Like they'll hard hedge ball screens and force some other guys to make shots. Like forcing like a Sincere Harris to make shots is probably a good proposition. I don't even know if he's still made a 3 this year. I was telling you like last week that he was like 0 for 25 from 3 to start the year. If you can force guys like him to make shots, force Toby Okani to beat you, and they don't have Hansberry to space the floor in like the pick and pop game, it looks like both of those guys are going to be out. I've heard DeVries is going to redshirt. I'm not completely sure. I don't even know how that would work at this point in the year, but I have heard he's possibly going to redshirt and he's going to sit out the rest of the year. So yeah, till further notice, like as a big favorite, I'm definitely going to be looking in the other direction.
Yeah. The next game, Alabama at home against Oklahoma. They're 12.5-point favorites against undefeated Oklahoma.
Yeah,
It's
more of a
about time Oklahoma goes down, right? I mean, they are long overdue, and they've been very fortunate based on the schedule that they've played to be undefeated right now. I'm not going to take anything away from some of the wins that they do have, but overall, like the wins that they have, like they don't have any like truly elite wins. So I'm gonna side with Alabama to just come out and throttle them.
Yeah, I'm on that side too. It's not like it wouldn't be official for me, but that's definitely the side to be on. I think Alabama can kind of blitz them on the interior. Oklahoma's 2-point defense has been pretty horrendous all year, despite them defending the 3-point line extremely well. I think Alabama's the number one 2-point offense in the entire country. Like their spacing can, stretch out Sam Godwin and Jalen Moore away from the rim and just create driving lanes for these Bama guards. And they can get all over the glass against an Oklahoma team that's pretty weak on the defensive glass. I will defend Oklahoma. Just people say that they're due for 3-point regression. And Porter Moser's team year after year defends the three and at an elite level. Like they play in the gaps really well while still being able to get out to shooters. Like I think every single year their guarded 3-point rate allowed is like the tops in the country. So they're going to keep doing that again. Like they're giving up 27% from three right now. And I think the last 3 years under Moser, it's been like 29% allowed. So I don't really think they're due for regression in that area, but the 2-point defense is super weak and they don't rebound. They're pretty careless with the ball. And I do think that could come back to bite them on the road, especially against an Alabama team that's going to be extremely fired up to see an undefeated team come into Tuscaloosa. So yeah, I would definitely side with the Alabama side. The way I would actually play this is I actually do like Cincinnati as well, but I don't really love laying 3 in that game. So I would pair Cincinnati's money line with Alabama's money line to get something close. I think you'd get like plus 105 for that. So that's the way I would use it. Just use Alabama as like a money line, like sweetener for another team that you like, but don't want to lay like 3.5 to 4.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that's probably the way to go because that is a big number to lay, right? I don't care. Like it's 2 ranked teams. Like it is a bit daunting to lay that. There's so many ways to get a backdoor cover and things of that nature. So definitely it's something to keep in mind there. While you're talking about that Cincinnati game, right? That's you said it was 3-point favorite against Arizona. That game's interesting because I don't know. Arizona played well the other day, right? They played better anyway. They didn't cover. That was a play that we had put out. But they could start conference play here with another bang, winning on the road against Cincinnati. So I expect this game to be a good game.
It should be a good game. My number would just have Cincinnati favored by closer to 4.5 to 5. I have them as the better team by a decent margin. So I just don't really trust Arizona going on the road and winning a ton of games in the Big 12. Cincinnati can defend one-on-one super well, force, Caleb Love to operate in isolation and force these other guards that aren't really all that great of shot makers to operate one-on-one. They're not really going to get a ton of spot up chances against the Cincinnati defense that has athleticism and likes to, stay at home against shooters at all 5 spots. So I just don't think it's a great matchup. Cincinnati can compete with Arizona on the glass and compete with them on the interior in general. So that's just the side I would be on. Is Cincy.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Next game, one of the last ones we're going to talk about, Texas A&M and Texas. Texas A&M, I believe, is 5-point favorite at home against Texas. Texas still kind of searching for their first true quality win. They don't have a quad 1 win yet. They've got, I think, 1 quad 2, 2 quad 3s. So this is a big game for them where they could go on the road, make an early season statement, their first game of SEC play.
Yeah, definitely one of the bigger. I don't really have a super strong opinion on this game. Like, we haven't really seen Texas play anyone of significance since when? In like the last month, like when they played UConn was
Yeah,
probably the last team that they played that
yeah.
had any worth. Like, they played the worst non-conference schedule in the entire country outside of
They
like 2
played
games.
they played what? Like NC State, Syracuse, St. Joe's, Ohio State, and UConn, right? Like
Yeah, and then like 7 teams that are outside of the top 300 in Ken Pom and just beat the crap out of them. Like, I don't know what to do with games like that. Like, you don't learn anything about your team playing a game like that.
no.
So that's just kind of what the Big 12 has done in their bye games over the years, is just schedule a bunch of like the bottom feeders in the country
Nicholls
and just
State, and
yeah,
New Orleans, and AR Pine Bluff, and
yeah, just try to like not take a bad loss at home and in non-con, which like I guess makes sense. And like the net values when you blow out teams by 50 for some reason. So yeah, it's just a way of like gaming the net rankings, I guess. So, but yeah, I don't really have a super strong opinion on this game. Texas needs to keep A&M off the glass. That's one area that Texas is a little bit weak, like just personnel wise. They've done a like numbers wise, they've been fine, but once again, they haven't really played anyone that's going to kill them on the glass. So I do expect A&M to have success in that area, but can A&M take care of the ball against these Texas defenders that are, they have a ton of quickness on that end. They have a ton of different guys that they can throw on Wade Taylor and Zurich Phelps. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Longhorns were able to hang around in this game. They have enough shooters to shoot over the top of this A&M defense. Like if Trey Johnson gets hot, I think they can win this game. They're going to have to stay connected to him. And Jordan Pope has played much better as of late for Texas. So I think if he's hitting shots from the outside, I think they can hang around.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm on the side of Texas here. I think this ends up being a good game. Um, like you said, though, I think the rebounding battle is going to be the key. Can Texas manage that and make enough shots on the offensive end? Right, they need to get into an early flow offensively, which they've struggled to do against good teams. UConn and Ohio State, in particular, they struggled to get into a flow soon enough, and then by the time they got into any sort of rhythm, the game was already over. So, I think those are a couple things to monitor here. I like Texas here, plus the 5. I think they have some length that can bother Wade Taylor a little bit, force him to take and miss some tough shots. We know you don't really need to force him to take tough shots, but they will be tough shots, I think, tomorrow. And I'm gonna side with him missing more than he's gonna make them. So I would say I'm on Texas plus 5, but not an official play, just kind of a lean.
Yeah, and I think Texas can take care of the ball against an A&M defense that likes to scramble around a bunch and try to force turnovers and take you away from the rim. Yeah, it does help that Texas is, they're willing to live on the outside as well. I think Texas is the number 1 team in the country in offensive turnover rate, which once again, you can't put like a ton of stock into it, but it does mean something to be, the top team in the country in a certain category. So, and they have a ton of ball handlers to be able to handle that A&M pressure. So definitely the side I would be on, but I am a little bit afraid of them going on the road in their first SEC game against an A&M team that could, obviously shoot better at home than they do in other environments. So, yeah, definitely a stay away for me. Definitely an intriguing game to watch. A game I'm definitely going to have my eye on because I haven't seen Texas play all that much lately, and I haven't seen them get tested. So it should be a fun game.
Yeah, I'm with you. The last game I wanted to just briefly mention is Arkansas and Tennessee. Arkansas back into the top 25 this week. Tennessee still sitting at number 1. They're number 2 in our rankings, but Tennessee comes in here at 12 and a half, I believe, or 13 and a half. It's a big number. I think this is a game where I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas can hang around a little bit. I don't expect them to win this game, but I feel like Tennessee's starting to get those numbers just kind of like defaulted to them. Like those kind of like mid to low teens numbers. It's like, oh, they're the number 1 team in the country. But I think Arkansas has some guys that can get downhill. I think they have some size that can limit Tennessee on the boards a little bit. I think they can maybe make enough shots. We'll see, I guess. I think they can get to the foul line a little bit. So I don't think Arkansas is going to win this game, but I think that they may be able to put a scare into Tennessee a little bit and make them work for this one.
Yeah, and like we've seen Coach Cal teams go to Tennessee and beat Tennessee. Like even last year, that Kentucky team was able to go in there and win because they were the more talented offense. And I would say Arkansas is definitely the more talented offense in this game, especially in the backcourt. Like a lot of it will depend on how Boogie Fland operates against either if they put Meshack on him or if they put Ziegler on him. He's going to have to hold his own. It's going to be tough going in there as a freshman and hanging in there and being a tough shot maker that he is. But in Arkansas, they're starting to get healthier as well, and they can definitely compete with Tennessee up front. ADU's kind of a revenge game for him, I guess. I don't know if there's any bad blood there, but I do think he can hold his own on the glass with some of these other guys, with Thiero and Ivicic, and Brazil's going to have to be big in this game as well. And if they get into foul trouble, they have enough bodies to hang around in there, and Tennessee isn't going to be able to punk them on the glass. And they have enough length to bother Lanier a little bit. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if the talent could play up in the underdog role.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a solid spot for them to kind of show that they're capable of hanging around with some of the top teams in the SEC on the road even. So a lot of good games tomorrow. Some other ones we didn't mention, like Baylor and Iowa State. But should be a great day of basketball. A lot to keep up with for those of you out there watching. It's sensory overload, as we like to say. So hope everyone enjoys it. Hope these plays work out for us, for you guys. Put some extra cash in the pocket after spending a bunch of money on Christmas presents or whatever we spend money on. And we'll talk to you again in the next episode, which will likely be coming on Sunday night to recap some of these weekend games. Enjoy the games, guys, and we'll talk to you next time.